Puck News and host of Snapchat's Good Luck America, also host of Puck's podcast, The Best and the Brightest. Peter, welcome back to The Story Is. A little diversion, I think, is what he's referring to. Really, he means the war with Iran.
Excursion, diversion. He uses a bunch of words to distract from the fact that it is an actual war.
But can't say war because you would need Congress to authorize war, and that's a legal term, and so he didn't want to do that. So it's not technically a war.
That is true. And also, as he mentioned in those remarks in Nevada, we're in a midterm year. You don't want to be going around saying that you started a war when you ran for president on ending the wars.
Right.
And he just started a big one.
Yeah. But it's a reminder, though, the reason he won was this idea, I'm going to lower costs, and the economy is number one.
Yeah, so I think the storyline of the second Trump presidency, a little bit of the first, is that Donald Trump is incapable of staying on message. He consistently steps on his own accomplishments. If you think about governors, mayors, presidents, they always face crises in their terms in office, and a lot of them are external. The thing with Donald Trump is that the crises he's faced as president are of his own making. Tariffs, unleashing ICE agents on American cities, and now the war in Iran, which does two things. One, it contradicts his message during the campaign that he was going to end the wars, but also it's hurting the economy. And him going to Nevada and saying that he's helping people, that's fine. There is a good story to tell. You know, if you look at GDP, the labor market, the stock market, wages adjusted for inflation, there are good storylines for the economy, and Trump has a good story to tell, but gas prices are up. In Nevada, they are $5 a gallon right now compared to $4 just a year ago. And so the Treasury Department is saying, Alex, that people are getting around a $350 rebate from the Trump tax cuts. Again, that's a pretty good story to tell. Not bad, up 11% from the previous year. But if you drive a car in Nevada, right, say you drive a Toyota Corolla, you have a 12-gallon car. The average American fills up their car 35 times a year. A year ago, it cost you about $1,700 to fill up a Toyota Corolla in the state of Nevada. Now gas prices are $5. It costs $2,100 a year to fill up your Toyota Corolla in Clark County, Nevada. So that completely invalidates that $400 gap, the $350 average that Americans are seeing from their tax rebates. Now, everyone's finances are different. That's just some math I did right here on this little blue card. But Trump, for every good storyline, there's a bad storyline with the economy, and people are feeling a bad economy right now. The consumer confidence is at its worst level since Trump came back into office.
I'm just impressed that you do math.
I rarely do, but it is tax season.
That is impressive. Let's talk about some of your writing. You just put out in Puck a new article on Eric Swalwell, which has been the big story of the week, called The Talented Mr. Swalwell. And part of what you look at is his connections to Hollywood, because Eric Swalwell was a congressman from Northern California, yet he spent a lot of time here in Southern California, would stay at Stephen Klubeck, this billionaire's house, frequently, and talked with you and talked with us here behind the scenes often about an AI company that he had an ownership stake in, and being a Hollywood screenwriter himself.
Yeah. The thing with Swalwell is running for governor is a good example of this, actually. It was very interesting that he only represents a single congressional district in California and has no statewide profile outside of the East Bay, up outside of Oakland, and yet was like, I'll jump in that race. To your point about the AI company hanging out with Hollywood donors and Hollywood stars, spending time here, lots of his travels have been revealed in various pieces of reporting over the last week. He was always looking for something bigger and better, and a lot of politicians are.
A lot of politicians, both sides do that.
I know, but for him in particular, and I've known him for a decade, and you've known him for just as long, he just loved the spotlight. He loved the game, and again, a lot of politicians are thirsty. It just feels like the fame kind of went to Eric Swalwell's head over the years, and a lot of politicians, a lot of lawyers get elected to Congress, they go to Washington, they're away from their families, and in his case, he starts paying attention to women outside of his marriage. It's just like, it's a tale as old as time when it comes to politicians and people in Washington, but Eric Swalwell in particular just loved the cameras. He just loved it. And so some of this stuff in hindsight is not surprising.
And the clicks. Although his family was living there in the D.C. area, which was part of the controversy here, was people were saying that he didn't actually necessarily live here, although he was renting a house, a room in a house up in Northern California. So he also would send you and send me and send other people screenshots of the betting markets, which showed how well he was doing. And you think that that symbolized more than that?
I think it did. I mean, someone from his congressional district this evening tweeted out a piece, one of his last pieces of direct mail for his congressional reelection campaign. And what was on the piece of direct mail? It was stuff about democracy, it was stuff about fighting ICE. He embodied, in part because of his role in the impeachment hearings with Nancy Pelosi against Donald Trump, the resistance Democrat. But beyond that, and the spotlight that it brought for him, he was never known as a policy person. He didn't have any big ideological underpinnings. And yeah, for both of us, I texted him when he jumped in the governor's race, and I was like, I wanted a point of view on governing California or his strategy against these other candidates running for governor. And he just sent me a screenshot of his Kalshi odds. You know, and at the time he was surging loosely. It was like 14%. But that just symbolized to me that he cared more about the power and the ambition than actually having a rationale for being governor of California.
But also, didn't it show something that he was doing so well there, and that maybe he interpreted it that the constituents were looking for more of a fighter against Trump than maybe the policy specifics, which says something larger about the electorate as a whole.
Totally, and it does. And yeah, I mean, that's the Prop 50 campaign sort of showed that. But why would you say that to a reporter? Why would you post that on Twitter? He was posting his Kalshi odds all the time. Just talk about Trump. Don't post your Kalshi odds.
Yeah, interesting. And now the race, who knows what's going to happen as we go forward, kind of all up in the air. Peter Hamby, thank you so much. You can check out his work on Snapchat and Puck as well. Still